February 25, 1964, Miami Beach. Under the hot lights of the convention hall, a 22-year-old challenger circles the most feared man alive, Sonny Liston, world heavyweight champion.
Sonny Liston, I think, was possibly the greatest intimidator of all time.
Ex-enforcer, embodiment of menace, stands motionless, coiled like a trap. Around them, the crowd roars for the familiar order of things. Champions stay champions. Loudmouths are punished. Then the bell rings. Cassius Clay doesn't brawl. He dances, feet light, head flickering just beyond reach. He moves like something the sport had never seen. Each jab lands with surgical precision. Each taunt slices deeper than any glove. By the 7th round, the unthinkable unfolds. Liston refuses to rise. The underdog has humiliated the unbeatable. Clay sprints to the ropes, shouting into the cameras.
I have a mark on my face, and I upset Sonny Liston, and I just turned 22 years old. I must be the greatest. I shook up the world. I shook up the world.
And in that moment, he did. This wasn't just a win, it was a rupture. A new physics had entered the ring. Speed over brute force, rhythm over rage, audacity over obedience. Every story about Muhammad Ali begins here.
The fastest moving heavyweight in the entire history of 1 century of world heavyweight champion.
I wouldn't want to do too much bragging about it, but everybody that watches me fight or everybody that has witnessed one of my bouts, they say that I am the greatest that they've ever seen.
Before he was Muhammad Ali, he was Cassius Marcellus Clay Jr., a boy on a bicycle in the segregated South. Louisville, Kentucky, in the 1940s, was a city split by invisible lines. Black neighborhoods stayed on one side of the river. Opportunity stayed on the other. Cassius's father painted signs for those who could afford them. His mother cleaned houses for those who wouldn't serve her in restaurants. When his bike was stolen at age 12, Clay stormed into a nearby gym, swearing he'd whoop the thief.
How you became a fighter?
How I became a fighter? Somebody stole my bicycle and I wanted to learn how to fight so I could beat up the boy who stole it.
The police officer there, Joe Martin, told him he'd better learn to fight first and handed him a pair of gloves. What began as anger became obsession. The gym became his classroom, the ring his refuge. He trained with the precision of someone who knew the world wasn't built for him and decided to rebuild it anyway. In the corner of that tiny boxing hall, a rule began to form in Clay's mind. If the system won't give you power, take it through mastery. The same defiance that would later echo across continents began right there in a boy who refused to stay small in a world that told him to. By 18, Cassius Clay's speed had turned to poetry. He won Golden Gloves titles, then the National Amateur Crown, gliding through opponents who couldn't touch him. In 1960, he earned his ticket to Rome for the Olympic Games. A Southern kid who still couldn't eat at most diners in his own city, now draped in the colors of a nation that denied him equality. Rome made him a star. His footwork dazzled European crowds, unused to heavyweights who moved like dancers. He fought with joy, even grace, until only a Polish veteran, Zbigniew Pietrzykowski, stood between him and gold. Clay won by decision, arms raised high under the Olympic lights. For the cameras, he smiled like a new America was being born.
Cassius Clay has presented the coveted gold medal, a magnificent conclusion to the 1960 Rome Olympics.
But when he came home, reality struck harder than any opponent. Louisville's restaurant still turned him away. In frustration, legend says he tossed his gold medal into the Ohio River. Whether myth or truth, the gesture carried weight.
Ali had his gold medal around his neck, went to a restaurant downtown here to get some food. They wouldn't serve him.
They put me out of that restaurant. I said, this medal ain't worth a damn.
In 1960, you won a gold medal at the Rome Olympics. Then apparently a few months later, you stood on a bridge on the Ohio River and threw it away.
He famously threw his gold medal into the river.
It captured a contradiction that would define his life. Proud of his country, yet unwilling to kneel before its hypocrisy. Even as a teenager, Clay had begun breaking a deeper rule, the one that said an athlete's job was to perform, not to question. By 1964, Cassius Clay had become both spectacle and controversy. He predicted the rounds his opponents would fall in, shouted poetry at press conferences, and turned weigh-ins into theater.
I have wrestled with an alligator. I done tussled with a whale. I done handcuffed lightning, throw thunder in jail. Only last week, I murdered a rock, injured a stone, hospitalized a brick. I'm so mean, I make medicine sick.
The old guard called him arrogant, disrespectful, even dangerous to boxing's dignity. To them, the sport belonged to stoic warriors, not self-proclaimed prophets. His next opponent, Sonny Liston, represented everything Clay wasn't: silent, brutal, feared. Bookmakers gave Clay 7-1 odds against. Reporters mocked his fancy dancing. Even Liston laughed. But beneath the bravado, Clay was a tactician. He'd studied Liston's rhythm, knew how his punches looped, how to step just outside their orbit. The fight began with chaos. Clay's speed bewildered the champion. His taunts tore at Liston's composure. Midway through, a suspected liniment burned Clay's eyes. Blinded, he fought half a round on instinct alone. Then, as the pain faded, control returned. In the seventh, Liston quit on his stool. The room erupted. The heavyweight crown had been snatched not by brute force, but by intellect and insolence. Clay had shattered boxing's unspoken law. That humility follows power. He roared, "I'm the greatest!"
I must be the greatest!
And for the first time, the world had to listen. 2 days after conquering Liston, Cassius Clay made a different kind of announcement, one that shook America even more than the upset itself. He declared allegiance to the Nation of Islam and revealed his new name, Muhammad Ali.
You have joined the Muslim religion. How long have you had this interest, Cassius?
Oh, for the past 6 years, I would say.
Sports writers refused to use his new name, calling him Clay for years. Promoters feared losing audiences.
I'm tired of telling you, you know you're intelligent. My name is Muhammad Ali. What do you think?
But Ali's transformation wasn't rebellion for its own sake. It was reclamation. He rejected what he saw as a slave name.
The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, that's my original name. That's a black man name. Cassius Clay was my slave name. I'm no longer a slave.
What does it mean?
Muhammad means worthy of all praises, and Ali means most high.
And claimed an identity rooted in faith, pride, and autonomy. This was his second revolution. The first had been athletic, speed dismantling brute power. The second was existential, faith dismantling conformity. Every time he broke a rule, the world bent closer to him. Ali understood that greatness meant more than belts and fame. It meant being free, even when that freedom came with a cost he could already sense, waiting ahead. In 1967, Muhammad Ali was 25 years old, undefeated, and the most recognizable athlete on earth. Then came the letter. The US government wanted him to serve in Vietnam. For most champions, it would have been routine, a patriotic photo opportunity. For Ali, it was a test of everything he claimed to stand for. He refused, calmly, publicly, and without apology.
My brother, some darker people, some poor, hungry people in the mud for big, powerful America, and shoot them for what? They never called me. They never lynched me. They never put no dogs on me. They never robbed me of my nationality. My mother and father.
No Viet Cong ever called me the N-word. With that single line, he turned a personal stance into a global statement. The reaction was immediate and brutal. His boxing license was revoked, his title stripped, sponsors fled.
You have just seen the heavyweight champion of the world has rejected induction into the military service.
Sentences you to 5 years in prison and a $10,000 fine.
For nearly 4 years, he was banned from the sport that defined him.
Commissioners around the country immediately stripped him of his boxing licenses. An indictment by a federal grand jury would follow in May.
But exile only amplified him. College campuses filled with his name. Young men drafted into a distant war saw in Ali something beyond boxing, a man willing to lose everything rather than betray his conscience. He had broken yet another rule.
After he was stripped of the title and the right to fight anywhere in the world, he gave speeches at colleges and on television that totally reached me.
They look for me to be on the trail to jail without bail.
That champions must serve the state before themselves. When the Supreme Court finally overturned his conviction in 1971,
way to the U.S. Supreme Court, and in 1971 his conviction was finally reversed.
Ali here today a victor in his greatest fight ever. The Supreme Court exonerated.
he emerged leaner, older, but unbroken. The world had changed while he was gone, and so had he. By 1974, Muhammad Ali was no longer the lightning bolt of his youth. The layoff had slowed his reflexes. His once effortless movement carried the memory of time. Yet he was still chasing something larger than redemption, a chance to prove that his genius wasn't speed, but understanding. His opponent, George Foreman, was younger, stronger, and terrifying. He destroyed Joe Frazier in 2 rounds. No one gave Ali a chance. The fight was set in Zaire, the rumble in the jungle. It wasn't just a sporting event. It was theater, politics, and poetry under the African night sky. To millions across Africa and the diaspora, Ali was a returning son, a symbol of black pride. To Foreman, he was an old man with too much talk. But Ali had a plan no one saw coming. He leaned on the ropes, absorbed the punishment, and whispered in Foreman's ear, "Is that all you got?" It was madness or brilliance. Round after round, Foreman exhausted himself trying to break him. In the 8th, Ali exploded off the ropes, a perfect right hand sending the champion sprawling. Zaire erupted. Against logic, age, and physics, Ali had once again rewritten the rules. He hadn't just beaten a man, he'd outthought a monster. Muhammad Ali's style was more than charisma. It was an equation that defied physics. Heavyweights weren't supposed to move like that. At 6 feet 3 inches and over 200 pounds, he floated on his toes as if gravity had been misapplied. His jab snapped from impossible angles. His head slipped punches by inches, not feet. He redefined the geometry of the ring. What made him revolutionary wasn't raw power, but timing. The way he turned defense into counterattack. Where others braced for impact, Ali disappeared. His rhythm confused even veteran fighters. His movement turned aggression into exhaustion. He trained his reflexes like a dancer, shadow-boxed in mirrors until every motion looked effortless, every feint indistinguishable from a strike. But perhaps his greatest weapon was psychological. The poems, the boasts, the taunts, they weren't arrogance, they were tactics. He controlled the space between punches as completely as the blows themselves. Every insult was a needle under his opponent's skin, every smile a statement of dominance. Ali broke the rules of boxing technique and rewrote them as art. He turned violence into choreography and made mastery look like rebellion. When the gloves came off, Muhammad Ali's influence only grew. He became a mirror for an entire generation, a man who refused to be quiet, even when silence was safer. In the years after his fight, he spoke in mosques, schools, and refugee camps. He visited prisoners, children's hospitals, and war zones, carrying the same conviction he once brought into the ring. Ali was more than a sports hero. He was a cultural earthquake. He forced conversations America wasn't ready to have about race, war, and faith, and did it with the same rhythm that once baffled opponents. He showed athletes they could be more than entertainers, that they could stand for something. The world eventually caught up. He lit the Olympic torch in 1996, his trembling hands a reminder that courage isn't the absence of weakness, but persistence through it. By then, even those who once condemned him spoke his name with reverence. Ali had become what he always claimed to be, the greatest, but the greatness wasn't in his titles, it was in how he redefined what victory meant. When Parkinson's disease began to claim his voice in the 1980s, the world held its breath. The man who once spoke like thunder now whispered, his body slowed, his movements trembled, yet somehow the silence made him larger. For decades, Ali had fought the system, the state, and his opponents. Now he faced something he couldn't defeat and met it with the same grace he once brought to the ring. He appeared rarely, but every glimpse mattered. Lighting the Olympic flame in Atlanta in 1996, his shaking hand became a symbol of endurance, not decline. In that flicker of fire, people saw not the fallen fighter, but the man who had always refused to bow. When he passed away in 2016, the world stopped again. Presidents, rivals, believers, skeptics, they all came to honor him. His funeral became a global chorus, not of mourning, but of gratitude. Muhammad Ali's legacy isn't confined to boxing records or medals. He broke rules so others could move freely. He stood tall so others could speak loudly. And even now, his echo reminds us of what he proved with every fight, every word, every act of defiance, that true greatness isn't about power, It's about the courage to stand alone until the world moves with you. In a world that measures greatness by numbers, Muhammad Ali reminded us that true greatness breaks the rules that confine it. If stories like this move you, if you believe human limits were made to be challenged, then join us. Subscribe, like, and share this video to keep these feats alive. This is Stride Law, where human history meets the edge of what's possible.